Hi everybody, my name is Sarah Belcher. I am a functional medicine practitioner. So that's looking at the root cause of symptoms or disease of patients either in clinic or online. And today I'd like to talk to you about detoxification. I do some successful group detoxification programs periodically 2 to 3 times a year online, and this helps to improve people's symptoms such as fatigue, joint pain, malaise, digestive issues and weight loss resistance, just to name a few. So today I'd like to do a short 10-minute video just to talk to you about why detoxification is an important process to do regularly so that you can try and avoid chronic disease. We'd rather wait for symptoms to occur and then have a medication, right? Well, most of you out there don't want to do that. So what we want to try and do is treat disease and symptoms from an upstream management point of view, which is functional medicine based, to try and reduce the burden on your body and prevent these diseases. So check this out, be less than 10 minutes, and we'll talk about a little bit more depth into detoxification. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so why detox? So I want to talk about the reasons for detoxification, and what we see here is that there's a lot of chemicals in our environment. So more than 80,000 chemicals exist in the US, and approximately 2,000 are added every year. Scientists are brilliant at creating chemicals that improve our lives, but what we don't know is the long-term effects. So it's all around us. And more than 700 synthetic compounds have been identified in our drinking water alone. And this, of course, is different in different parts of the world, different parts of the US, but we are drinking this water that's toxic. Our indoor environment is twice as polluted as our outdoor environment. And a lot of people don't realize that. We have off-gassing from flame retardants on our sofas, from paint toxicants and odors. We have room sprays that we use and plug in perfumed things to kind of cover up smells, and all of those things are pretty bad. We'll dive into that a little bit later. And then, of course, unfortunately, our children are born with toxicants in their bodies, and the Environmental Working Group, which is one that we follow for these types of things, showed that there was more than 200 toxins in our babies' bodies when they were born. So CDC has said in their 4th national report on human exposure to environmental chemicals that they actually did find about 212 into the blood of all Americans, most Americans. And the people that I test, and there's different ways of testing for toxicants, often show moderate to high levels of these things. And, it's going to affect all of our organs and physiological processes. So like I said, how do these toxins enter the body? Well, firstly, in the foods that we eat, of course, most things have pesticides on them these days, or they're GMO, certainly in America, and that can create toxic burden. Of course, the water that we drink, like I discussed before, and what's actually in that, and the air that we breathe, planes going overhead of us, the cars, and the off-gassing from industrial processes. And then last but not least, the products that we use. So, as women, we tend to slather on a lot of lotions and potions and perfumes, and those things can be endocrine disruptors. They can make us fat and they can make us sick. So a little bit more diving into what. So for the food groups, we see pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, which help to produce mass amounts of crops. And these are pretty bad, particularly if you look at things like glyphosate, which is in Roundup, which is a very used product to kill weeds. We've seen, settlements for Monsanto and the cancer settlements that have come out of Roundup. And so we need to really consider what we're putting into our bodies, and how is that food being sourced. And of course, genetic modified, and then it's preserved, adding more chemicals to it. And we also have artificial colors and flavorings, which can wreak havoc with your neurotransmitters, ADHD in children, and other joint pains, poor focus, things like that. Hormone-injected animals are obviously pretty common because we want the animals to grow fast and quickly, and those hormones directly affect our hormones once we ingest them. BPA from can lining is a big one. It's a plasticizer that is absorbed very readily into the gut, and is also an endocrine disruptor, meaning it's going to disrupt our hormones and affect your cycles, ladies. It's going to affect fertility potentially in the future. Processed meats containing nitrites and nitrates, again, more additives to our food, and then carcinogens formed from cooking meat. So if you like to really, charcoal grill your food, be cautious with that. So drinking water, diving a little bit deeper into that. Fluoride, chlorine, arsenic, and lead are big things. Heavy metals is a big problem for most people, and these things like to be stored in fat. We see heavy metals stored in fat, and your brain is fat. That can lead to brain fog and cognitive decline. The runoff into the drinking supply of pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, so we see that in water too. And then again, pharmaceuticals, people don't think about that. How many women are on the pill, and they are their metabolites from that pill is in our water supply. So we're seeing feminization of our society, and we have to think about how we're consuming water, because obviously it's life-giving, but just where is the source and what can we do about that? Industrial compounds, talked about a little bit. It's pretty obvious that we are massively productive in terms of the mass-produced stuff that we have these days, throwaway culture, lots of plastics and chemicals in clothes even, and that can be a big problem. Disinfection byproducts. Again, we tend to like to keep our environment clean, which is good, but sometimes it can be over clean. We can use a lot of bleaches and antibacterial products that actually will still have a major effect on our microbiome, and particularly our immunity, because we're not being exposed to some things that will help to improve our immune systems. Indoor and outdoor pollutants. If you smoke, stop now. For many, many reasons, but that's of course going to pollute the indoor space for others and even people outside your home. And then using these household products to, spray over the odors like air fresheners and detergents, disinfectants, you name it. And the stuff that's in our sofas, for example, flame retardants have to be in there. If we're using scented candles, that goes into the air, and then dry cleaning chemicals from our clothes. Natural sources too that are allergenic are dust mites, of course, mold and pets and pollen, and these produce toxins too that can be really aggravating to your system. We fortunately, live in a society where we can have, great buildings and roofs over our heads, and we're very thankful for that. But with that comes, of course, the building material toxicants such as paint and the insulation, the glue, asbestos, which is less than it used to be, but lead and formaldehyde and radon and carbon monoxide, even mold. These things are in our homes and we're exposed to them every single day. Make sure you air out your house every day, even if it's cold. Open a window if you can, and let's get some fresh air in. It's very, very important that we do that. Of course, industrial and car exhaust, people would think about that in terms of the air with breathing, and particularly if you live near an airport like I do as well, you've got, the exposure coming from the planes. Personal care products are a big one for me, and it takes my clients some time to switch over, but once they do, they can massively see the benefit. And we wear makeup, we use deodorants every single day, we have lotions and potions, and I want to think of your skin like a big mouth, right? So what you put on your skin bypasses your liver and goes straight into your bloodstream. If our bodies cannot process those toxins to make them less aggressive, less problematic for us, then they are going to store them in your fat. And when we see that, that's when we start to see toxic burden symptoms, which I've mentioned before, like joint pain and digestive problems and poor focus and memory and fatigue. So really have a think about what you're doing in terms of the toxicants that you're having in your daily products. Men too, everyone's getting more metrosexual these days, taking care of themselves a little bit more. It's still important for you, and those things can affect your sex hormones, which can affect your fertility and beyond. So as part of the program, I do teach people how to read those labels and understand more about reducing their exposure, which is number one. You can detox, but you've got to reduce your exposure. Sunscreen as well, and then of course pharmaceuticals. There are lots of people who are on medication, and those things have side effects, but they also have end products that are toxic to our gut, and then they build up over time. And if you think about that as part of your toxic load, it's very relevant, considering that people do take pills for headaches, but they're also on major medication for diseases, and we can reduce that medication perhaps if we look at the root cause of why you've got the problem in the first place. And usually toxins have a major role to play, which is why I often recommend people do this 2, 3, 4 times a year. Household products we mentioned, and then non-stick pans, they have some toxicants in there, particularly if they're scratched and you use them a lot, so be careful about that. We wrap a lot of stuff in plastic. Again, plasticiders are endocrine disruptors, meaning that they affect your hormones. And then food storage containers and water bowls, particularly guys, if you leave a water bottle in your car and it's hot outside, that is going to increase that amount of plastic that goes into that water. And the same if you microwave stuff in plastic. Do not do that, and stop doing that from today if you do. So body has options, right? It's extremely good. All of our cells detoxify every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every hour, every second. All of our cells have that capacity. It's not just the liver. And we have options when it comes to it. We can remove them, which it does extremely well in most circumstances. Or we can hide them in body fat if the levels get too high. And we say, okay, these things are reactive. They are going to damage our DNA. These are chemicals that are going to disrupt our cell receptors for our hormones. What can we do? Let's hide them in fat so that they get out of our bloodstream and that they're safe. And then we can deposit them in other tissues. And then what happens is that the long-term accumulation of these compounds and these toxins leads to what we call disease. So we want to say, okay, how can we go more upstream from that and reduce the toxins so that we don't come to this disease diagnosis? Common signs and symptoms. I've heard all of these. So chronic fatigue is a big one. It's often one of the reasons why people seek out functional medicine, because they have been told that their blood tests look fine, that their labs are okay, that they're probably just stressed, which they probably are, and get more rest. That's not an answer that people want if they want to be high, functioning at their highest level, right? We want to be helping those people, and fatigue is a major side effect and symptom of toxic burden. Constipation we see a lot, particularly in women too, if they're getting estrogen disruption from these plasticizers and these toxins. If you can't poop it out, then it's going to be reabsorbed through the bowel. So you want to be having good bowel movements every single day, and this detoxification certainly will improve that if that's an area that's problematic for you. Gas and bloating is a big one, food intolerances, food sensitivities, poor digestion, people feeling bloated after meals. Bad breath is a huge one. And then an inability to lose weight. People go on exercise programs, they seem to be doing things right, but if their hormonal balances are not good because they have a toxic burden, they're going to find that really difficult. And people do lose weight on this detox, but it definitely jumpstarts them into the right process to do more. Headaches too, migraines, we see a huge one. I had a lady that she'd had migraines for the last 20 years. And she did this detox, and her symptoms of migraines went down by 50% in 2 weeks, which even astounded me. But we do see then that the root cause of her migraines was definitely toxic overload. Mood swings, massive. People have mood swings all the time. They're relative to, you know, hormones, but they're also relative to toxic burden because of how it affects those. And irritability in the same category. Brain fog and problems with memory. We're seeing a lot of cognitive decline. And, you know, these, like we said, these toxins like to be stored in fat, and our brains are mostly made of fat. So how can we improve cognitive decline and memory loss? We definitely want to go through some detoxification and support that process. Joint pain and stiffness is huge. We see a lot of inflammation with toxins, and body chronic inflammation creates joint pain and stiffness. Often people come to me with diagnoses of like fibromyalgia, generalized joint pain and arthritis, and we do a detox program with them and their pain reduces significantly. And that certainly happened with me, even after an acute injury where I got some more chronic pain. It was really, really a game changer for me. And that's why I do it 3 or 4 times a year. We see people who are sensitive to odors and perfume in cigarettes, and that is a major red flag when it comes to how toxic you are. So if that is you, this is something you definitely need to do, absolutely. Frequent colds and infections and you know, skin rashes and hives, again, toxic load. And we've seen rashes reduce and people saying, you know, I don't get sick anymore since I've started doing this process. So all wins for you. Issues with long-term effects. So, okay, you can do this, it will help you short-term. If you then understand how to eat and live your life, which we give you information on how to do that after your detox, we don't just leave you to it, we're going to tell you how to move on and forward. Then, you know, you want to be thinking about what happens in the future. Always think about what happens in the future and think about your health as an investment. It's the best investment that you can make. If you have to manage a chronic disease, it's going to cost you money and time and family and spending, you know, moments in your life where you can't enjoy them. And we don't want that. We want to think about the future. So unfortunately, toxins can lead to reproductive problems. We're seeing more women having fertility issues these days, and certainly birth defects. We're seeing in children delayed learning and delayed motor skills because, you know, like I said, that they're born with toxins. Brain function is huge. You know, early onset of dementia and memory loss and cognitive decline is a real problem that we want to try and fix. And weight loss resistance is one of the major things that people come to see me for. Behavior, ADHD, autism, and, you know, just mood swings, really. Endocrine and hormones, of course, diabetes is a hormonal issue as well. And we see that in the future for people who have a toxic burden, and metabolic syndrome is in the same kind of category, you know, usually pre a diabetes diagnosis. And then autoimmune function and problems with that. And particularly right now with what we've had going on with COVID, we want to be thinking about our immune systems and trying to think about taking care of our gut, and detoxification is certainly going to help that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the schedule, because all that sounds good, but then you want to know, well, can I actually do this? And so we want to do it in a group because we have peer support. If you are not on Facebook, then that's totally fine. You don't have to be in this group. You'll have access to me and you'll have lots of information coming to you every single day. So basically the schedule is that we have 2 shakes a day with a supplement pack. So a shake in the morning that is designed to improve phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification. You have all the nutrients in there that are going to support you removing toxins from your body and inflammation. The supplementation pack is also there designed to support liver, gallbladder, and kidneys, which are all organs of detoxification. So you have a shake in the morning, you can put in there what you want in terms of some fruit and some vegetables if you want. And then you have the supplement pack. You can add things to that shake, like, you know, mango, avocado, berries, oat milk, almond milk, and make it as tasty as you want it to. And you have 2 choices. You have a pea protein or a bone broth protein, which is like beef based. They both are flavored, so they have nutrients in them as well. So it's not going to be your typical really, really sweet, protein shake, but they are very palatable. And then during that time, you're allowed to eat normal food. This is not a juice cleanse that's muscle wasting, which they are. This is going to provide you with good amounts of protein and nutrients, and you can eat what you want within the allowable food groups, which you will be given, and you'll be given recipes from me as well. So there's going to be lots of guidance in there. The price includes everything. So it's going to include your supplements and shakes, coaching from me, the ability to ask me questions, recipes and guides, videos, and how to avoid these toxicants in the first place. So it's a very comprehensive 2-week plan. I'm looking forward to working with you. And if you have any more questions on this, then please reach out, and we would love to see you in this group.